In recent years, British people have been getting increasingly concerned about how our country is becoming an authoritarian police state, where we are rapidly losing the right to free speech as the police crack down more and more on things that we say online. And this is something that's been an issue since 2014, when the police really ramped up this type of investigation. But I would say that it's ever since Elon Musk took over Twitter, or X, and the general public has been seeing what's happening because it's not being censored from the media, that people are becoming increasingly outraged about what's happening in this country. So what exactly is the problem? Well, I'm going to read to you from an article from the Free Speech Union that explains it quite clearly. Non-crime hate incidents, NCHIs, are a recent and chilling restriction of our free speech. Public awareness of NCHIs has grown since police recorded Harry Miller in 2019 and Darren Grimes in 2020 as having committed such incidents. So Harry Miller was an ex-policeman who tweeted a harmless dad joke about gender ideology on Twitter, and this was considered by the police to be a non-crime hate incident, an NCHI. And he appealed this and won his case because the High Court ruled that the police acted in a way that was Orwellian and had a chilling effect on free speech. So back to the article. What is an NCHI, or non-crime hate incident? NCHIs come from a document called the Hate Crime Operational Guidance, published by the College of Policing, the quango responsible for the oversight and guidance of police forces in England and Wales. This quango is in fact a limited company, and NCHIs have never been required by Parliament in legislation. This means that this new form of surveillance and speech control is being created by a company away from any democratic control. So we have a private company, the College of Policing, training police forces and setting the standards, and believe it or not, even ignoring requests from Home Secretaries Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, who requested that they stop pursuing these NCHIs. And I think that's quite ironic, considering how both Priti Patel and Suella Braverman have been portrayed by mainstream media as authoritarian figures themselves. So the College of Policing has ignored their request and acted in an even more authoritarian fashion. So the article continues under the heading Speech Policing and Thought Policing. The College of Policing defines NCHIs as any non-crime incident which is perceived by the victim or any other person to be motivated by hostility or prejudice. That's very broad, isn't it? An incident that is not a crime, so it's not illegal, but it's perceived by the victim or any other person. So you don't even have to be a so-called victim of this non-crime to be motivated by hostility or prejudice. How would you know what is motivating somebody else's speech? How can you test that? How can you prove it? And motivated by prejudice. Prejudice is just bias. Very murky. In particular, this means towards a person because of their possession of certain characteristics, and in brackets, race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, or transgender identity. It defines hostility as being based on the existence of ill will, ill feeling, and dislike. This means that certain thoughts are now being policed. Ill will, ill feeling, and dislike. Again, very vague and very broad. I mean, that implies that we must like whatever we're told to like by some higher authority, and that we must not have any ill feelings towards whatever it is. I mean, how do you define ill feeling? An NCHI can show up if prospective employers carry out enhanced disclosure and borrowing, or DBS checks. These are common for all sorts of professions. They could mean teachers, doctors, nurses, and many others are kept out of work simply for having made a joke on Twitter. This really reminds me of the social credit system in my motherland, where things you say online can damage your social credit score, and that in turn affects your access to money and services and can essentially have you barred from society. And the article goes on to talk about the case of Harry Miller. One recent high-profile case is that of Harry Miller. In 2019, Miller, a former policeman, was the subject of an anonymous denunciation for a hate incident via an online reporting portal because of his transphobic comments and quotes on his Twitter account. These comments turned out to include retweeting a verse from a feminist song. This led to Miller being visited by homicide police. Although no crime was committed, Miller's incident was recorded on a crime report, calling him the suspect and the complainant the victim. So there's no crime, but there's a victim. So if somebody is offended by something you post online, they are now considered the victim of a non-existent crime by the police. Miller was denounced as transphobic by an assistant chief constable. Miller took homicide police to court for their actions. The court found that the application of the hate crime official guidance to Harry Miller's case was unlawful, with his gender-critical views well within the scope of free speech protection. While the court held that recording NCHIs themselves were not unlawful, Miller is appealing this judgment, and on 9th and 10th of March his appeal will be heard at the Court of Appeal. So that case has since happened, and the Court of Appeal ruled that the police's actions were unlawful and it was an overstepping of his right to free speech. NCHIs can be recorded against someone's name whenever an accusation of hate is made without any further investigation or notification. This means people are being put on a list, often without their knowledge, when the police know that no crime has taken place. This is actually, in some ways, you could argue worse than the social credit system in China, because over there you can access your social credit score, you know what it is, and you know what you have to do to fix it, to improve it. Whereas NCHIs are recorded without your awareness, so you don't know what you've done wrong, and you don't know that there's a black mark against your name. NCHIs are recorded after anonymous accusations, encouraging a culture of denunciation like in the Soviet Union. Supposed victims need not justify their opinion, and police officers are told not to challenge accusers on the grounds that it is immaterial whether a victim's feelings are reasonable. So the accusation could be completely unreasonable, and yet police are expected to just go along with it and record this NCHI against your name, which could potentially damage your career opportunities. The police have claimed that NCHIs are needed to prevent escalation, but can provide no evidence that they do this. So when they talk about preventing escalation, there's an assumption that your speech or your thought is going to lead to further action, but it's just an assumption. So hopefully this article gives you some more context in terms of why British people are so up in arms about what's going on in this country in terms of our freedom of speech. It's arguable that we are now living in the most totalitarian nation in the Western world, and things are only set to get worse as long as people turn a blind eye to this and tolerate what's happening. And one very interesting fact I should mention is that the College of Policing, which is behind all of this, their chief exec since 2013 has been Alex Marshall, who is an outspoken LGBT activist who was awarded by Stonewall. He was appointed in 2013, and coincidentally, since 2014, the police have dramatically ramped up their pursuit of NCHI's non-crime hate incidents. Interesting. Could this explain why two-tier policing has become such an issue in recent years? because the police force has been ideologically captured. It's undeniable that the UK is in the midst of a culture war, and the British public is becoming increasingly concerned that the police are playing an integral role in this. What do you think? Let me have your thoughts in the comments. Please do give this video a like, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel, which really helps me immensely. Thank you.